Logan, could you quickly send me just a copy of minutes so I've got the script, please? I had them all open and then when I closed down, I've lost everything and I'm not pulling anything up yet. Not even getting.
We're live.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the school committee meeting. It is a public hearing tonight on January 15th for the budget for the town appropriation. Please give me just one moment to find what I need to announce. All of these great technical issues that we had, I had it all open and then my computer had to shut down and now I've got to find it again. So, excuse me for 1 second. Great. Thank you everyone for your patience. I would like to just ensure that I have everyone present for this evening. So when I call your name, if you could just say aye. Steve Sudovic, Secretary.
Aye.
Thank you. Tim Lepre. Not yet. Okay. Zona Butler. Not yet. And I know that Jen Iller is not able to join us this evening. So I will proceed with the opening and I'm sure by then Dr. Lepre and Zona Butler will join us. Thank you. This is Pauline Proch. I am chair of the Nantucket School Committee. Commit me, yes, I think you could commit me today. Permit me to confirm that members who will be presenting today are present. When I call your name, please say aye. Superintendent Elizabeth Hallett.
Aye.
Thank you. Jennifer Erickson, Director of Technology. Jennifer Erickson, could you just recognize you're present? Jen, can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to move on for a moment. Logan O'Connor, School Committee Clerk.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. This is an open meeting of the Nantucket School Committee and it is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Backus' executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. This is the public hearing for the school committee budget. For this meeting, Nantucket School Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom webinar app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. And as I normally like to just remind everybody, if you go on to the town website or the school website, you can find the link and we can, you can access then, and then you can join the YouTube for your public comment. You will enter the Zoom call itself and you will be able to have the ability to raise your hand for a comment. but that is going to happen at the end of this meeting. There are no votes to be taken at this time tonight, but I would like to just check here to see if my fellow school committee members have joined us. Tim Lepre, are you here? Zona Butler? Do not hear you. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to questioning if we have two people. I am not sure if we can hold a committee meeting. We don't have a quorum, but as we don't have a vote, can we still hear? We can't hear the vote. We can't hear the meeting either. Okay.
It is definitely awkward. And I wish I had an answer for you. But if we don't have 3 out of 5 and we're not a quorum, I wonder if we can actually meet.
Yes, I don't believe we can. I am going to reach out to our fellow committee members. And I'm presuming nobody has heard from anybody. So let's see if they're able to join. I know that there were some difficulties for me getting on today. And this is always the struggle of having our meetings held remotely. To join. So I'm sorry, everybody, to hold you up while we wait to get confirmation. But it's nice to see everybody. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, can we find out if Ms. Erickson can hear us now?
Yes, that's a good idea. Jen, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. About 3 minutes ago, it looked like my computer completely came off, but apparently you could still see me, and I could see on the YouTube, which is delayed a little bit, that the signal stayed strong. So I'm not sure what's happening right now.
Okay. Nobody has reached out to me to say that they're having difficulty getting on. And Beth, I'm assuming you haven't heard from anybody today. No, I didn't either. Yeah, I think there is something a little wacky with the connection.
I agree. I have 2 different computers up connected so that I could do the presentation on a separate computer, and they're both doing completely different things.
Okay. Yeah, as you all know, I had difficulties I was getting on too. Okay. Well, I think, Beth, as we are trying to connect with our other members, we should probably, in case we're not able to have them get through, we should probably look for another date to be able to hold this, just in case. I
believe that Logan may be trying to contact some of them, and certainly we will contact the town if we need to find another date.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Jen, I'm just curious if you could just message me how many people you see on the YouTube, and if anybody else has joined us.
Tim, it's Logan. Are you there?
I'm there.
Are you coming in? Because we can't run this meeting without you. We only have Pauline and Steve.
Logan, we can hear you if you can mute. There you go. Jen, can you just let me know how many people we have? You could just message me.
Yep, there are 3 people watching on YouTube.
Okay. And then can you see if anybody has joined us for as part of the Zoom non-presenter? Okay, so we have Tim that's trying to get on. So that's a good sign because we can have the meeting with the three of us. And Logan, would you also reach out to Mrs. Butler, please? Thank you. All right. See when I can get Tim on my screen, and then we can do this. And so, Jen, you'll be putting up the presentation for Beth?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yep.
Terrific. Okay, I see Tim. Welcome, Tim. If you could unmute yourself, I would call your name to have a roll call for you being present, and then I'll go straight into accepting the agenda. Tim, are you able to hear me and are you present? Can you unmute? Because I'm going to need you also to make the vote for the agenda. There you go. Terrific. Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to have an approval, please, for the agenda for tonight's budget hearing. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Steve, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Tim Lepre?
Aye.
Thank you, and Pauline, aye. Terrific. Well, we got there, everybody. Took us a little bit, but we're here. So this is the presentations and discussions of interest for the budget presentation public hearing for fiscal year 2022. And I'd like to, at this point, turn it over to Dr. Beth Hallett, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share what I am calling our budget story for 2021-22 school year. As you can imagine, the planning for this budget began in the thick of this pandemic year, for lack of better words. And it was definitely a challenge to try and predict where we would be at the end of the year and next year with so many unknowns. So I do hope the presentation provides an accurate and clear account of where we are now and what we hope to accomplish in the next school year. Every discussion and every decision that we have made has always kept our students at the center. So that has been a core value of mine and of our district leadership team. I want to thank them for being present and for being so much a part of this budget story. And I appreciate all of the work that they've done together and with me to tell this story. So next slide, please, Jen. So this slide is a summary of our enrollment from 2010 to 2022 as projected. From 2010 to 2019, the district saw pretty steady growth each year with enrollment numbers then dropping slightly after 2019 to the present. So this could be due to a slight downturn in the economy. The cost of living has continued to go up. So these are important pieces to keep in mind as we are looking forward and considering what our budget can do for us. The prediction for 2021-22 puts us fairly even with where we are currently this year. So we know that these numbers could change based on the pandemic or other things as well. And so we need to keep in mind that it is only a projection, but we do assume that we will see some a sense of stability with our enrollment. Next slide, please, Jen. So here is the district's historical enrollment by grade over the last 20 years. Again, you can see fairly steady growth each year in total population, school population. In looking at our subgroups in the orange columns, it is important to note that our school population looks very different than it did 20 years ago. If you look at 2000-2001, 93% of the students were predominantly white, and now only 50.2% are white. So this means that half of our school population this year is people of color and are not white. So this is our largest growing subgroup in this area is Hispanic at 29.5%. And it's really interesting to note that our Black student population has stayed fairly steady since 2013, and the percentage of students who identify as other has been growing. So all of this presents an important shift that we must consider and incorporate into parts of our initiative around curriculum and social emotional well-being, parts of our district improvement plan. It's so important that we consider and keep in mind equity and access as we move forward. Next slide, please. So our English learner population has grown exponentially since 2005, with 10 times as many students here as we had 17 years ago. Interesting to note is that the largest number of students has always been at Nantucket Elementary School. And this can be explained by the fact that students' language proficiency grows very quickly at the youngest grades. And a lot of programming and instruction has been put into place in the earliest years as of recent. And this is wonderful because by then, many students don't need ESL support by the time they reach the 3rd grade, and they're able to be successful in all of mainstream classes. So we are projecting continued growth for next year. And so it is, this is very important and has implications on what the needs of these students are. And so you will see some of that in future slides and more explanation about our budget. Next slide, Jen. So this slide shows our special education population over the last 10 years with a projection for 2021-22. We are definitely seeing upward growth in our special education population as more students present significant needs and therefore require a large variety of special services. As we do each year, we look carefully at the specific needs of our students in order to determine how to apply the appropriate supports for them to succeed. We are always looking to reduce the number of our out-of-district students and placements and try to provide appropriate programming to keep them home on the island with their families if we can, and provide wraparound services. So something to always keep in mind. Next, please. And I'm going to turn this over to Martin, who is going to do the next few slides.
Good evening. As you saw last week from presentations that we had about budgets, we are now presenting the fiscal year 21 budget as this year is 31,296,642. The fiscal year 2022 budget is an increase of $1.58 million, and as we mentioned in our presentations, 150,000 of those are for one-time increase, and 1.43 million are for ongoing expenses. So this is just a summary of the numbers. Jen, please, next slide, please. At the next slide, you'll see how our budget has grown in the past 9 years. It is a 30% growth over a period of 9 years, and for this current fiscal year, again, we're seeing a very good 5% increase in total of our operating budget. So as Dr. Hallett mentioned, and as was described in the presentations by individual schools, after priorities were considered, I think it's a solid appropriation which would help us achieve all the goals, all the administrative goals, and all the goals we have for in the upcoming fiscal year. Next slide, please. This is the per pupil expenditure. This is a comparison of with the state per pupil expenditure and Massachusetts. As you can see, starting in 2009, 2010, we were expanding 22,458 as compared to 13,047 statewide. Those numbers have grown steadily on the state side, and for us, there was a drop between the years of 2010, 2011, and it reached back that level actually in 2017, 2018, the level of 2009, 2010. And so now we're seeing a small increase this year as well. Well, not this year, obviously. These are the last official numbers available, and this is 2018, 2019. So our expectation is that this steady growth would continue. But as you can see, we are a little under $6,000 over the average that is expended per pupil in the state of Massachusetts. Next slide, please. This is the favorite Chapter 70 slide. Chapter 70 is an abbreviation that has come to signify the idea of Massachusetts Department of Education that started in 1990s, and this was to provide an equitable share to each district to make sure that they can provide adequate education to all its students. And it was divided into two segments. One segment is the local contribution part, which the target share of that is 82.5% of the foundation budget. And the rest was supposed to be bridged by Chapter 70 funding, which is state funding, and the target for that was 17.5%. Throughout the years, obviously, we have grown almost 2.5 times from 2011, 2012 to our current 2020-21 number. It is the same as last year. We were hoping, and in the initial budget that was submitted back in, I believe it was January 2020, we were supposed to get a $49,920 increase in Chapter 70. Subsequently, due to the pandemic and due to revenue projections being revised at the state level, that number was removed. So we are getting a even number with last year, which is still a solid amount of money coming from the state that helps offset the amount that town gives us. Obviously, our foundation budget is at over 32 million. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. Our foundation budget is was calculated to be 19,472,000. So due to the fact that we are receiving a substantial amount over the foundation budget, these money go to town, and they don't come to school accounts. There have been questions in the past about where Chapter 70 goes. It doesn't come directly to the school district. It goes to town as a sort of offset for the money that are given to the schools. And next slide, please. I believe this is back to Beth. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. So this slide shows our federal grants that we have for this year and the allotment that we received this year, 725,272. So the largest grant that we get is the IDEA grant, which is our special education grant. It is based on our special education population and is used for services and programs in that for those students. Our title grants make up the next set of federal grants. Our Title I grant has to do with socioeconomic status and is determined through free and reduced lunch numbers. Our grant funding is used to support instruction during the school day, as well as our summer school program, among other things as well. Title II is preparation, training, and recruitment of high quality teachers and principals. So this is professional development and other assistance based programs for development of staff. Title III is a grant that supports English learner instruction, professional development, and program support. Title IV is professional services, and again, that goes to professional development, mentoring and induction, etc. Perkins grant is a career and technical education grant, and it is small, but we hope to see it in the future as perhaps our technical education, career and technical education programs grow. This year, we have the ESSER grant, which is also known as the CARES Act grant, and that's that green wedge. It was a huge help this year, and we used this grant to buy PPE and really focus on our facilities needs as well as technology. And so we are very pleased and very happy to have had this opportunity to use additional funding for this year particularly, and not knowing what the expectations would be. We do know that there is an ESSER 2 grant that is coming through very soon from the federal government that has passed as part of the stimulus package. We believe, and we have been notified, that the ESSER 2 grant will be almost 4 times the amount. So we are very glad to have that coming our way, and that will be an important part of our budget, and it will be used very wisely. Next slide, please. So this shows an image of the Nantucket Public Schools budget for next year, how we will divide that up. So you'll see that individual school budgets are fairly even. They are based on enrollment. So the largest budgets do go to the high school and the elementary school, and they do have the highest enrollments. The smallest budgets are athletics and technology. Technology has had a very good amount of assistance this year due to our federal and state COVID grants. So that is another reason why we don't see too much in that grant. We are very happy to have had some assistance this year. And for next year, we know we will also have some. Next slide, please. This is just an overall slide that shows that our payroll is really the majority of our budget. 83% of our entire budget goes to payroll. And so each year that our payroll goes up with contractual obligations, it becomes a little more expensive to add personnel. And our operating budget is only 17%. So just something to think about as we move forward in explaining our budget needs and proposal. Next slide, please. So as the district leadership team set out to determine the budget needs for each school, each program, and each department, the following parameters were put into place. We want to be sure that budget needs are tied to district and school goals. And in today's day and age, there needs to be a focus on access and equity for all students. So that was an important lens with which we started the budget process. Building budgets, we are expecting to reflect projected enrollments, needs around curriculum and instruction, and any additional needs due to COVID-19. Having COVID-19 with us has definitely affected us, and we need to be thinking of that for next year as well. So, of course, principals and directors were also asked to identify essential services for their students as they planned their budgets. An important element that went into budget design also for this year was the physical, social, and emotional well-being of our students, all of whom have been affected by the pandemic. So another area of focus. We need to be sure that our budgets are based on trends around expenditures in the last 3 years, and we want to continue to utilize any and all revenue streams outside of the budget, such as our federal and state grants. And of course, we need to look very carefully at what we are spending with utilities. So these were the parameters that we put into place as we started our budget development. Next slide, please. So this slide and the next slide will show you an overview of the budget increases that we presented at our last 2 school committee meetings. And the first slide shows an overview of all of our 4 schools and what they are looking for in proposing an increase over the current budget. So Nantucket Elementary School is looking to bring on a half-time interventionist. And when I say half-time, basically that means that this person would be shared between NIS and NES. So as well as 2 kindergarten TAs to assist in the general classroom. Nantucket Intermediate School is again looking to utilize the shared interventionist, and based on their special education population, they would like to add a full-time special education teacher to adequately cover student caseloads. CPS is looking to hire a new encore teacher, possibly technology, but still to be determined, in order to offer additional opportunities for academic specializations like music, art, technology, and other encore areas. Nantucket High School will need an additional special education teaching assistant to support students with disabilities in the classroom, and they are looking to increase funding for science books. Next slide, please. In the English learner department, there is a need to increase the technology line to offer more Imagine Learning subscriptions and other applications that work for English learners and English learner instruction. So this is a need that was discovered this year, and are hopefully we will be able to cover next year, especially for our K-5 learners. Also, the English learner department is looking to add a sheltered English instruction coach for middle and high school in the general education classrooms. This is important to make sure that our middle and high school English learners have a successful pathway towards a diploma. Special services needs a special education interpreter to assist with the increased number of Spanish-speaking children and families who are using and needing special education services. The tech department is looking to increase funding for software based on the needs that came up this year and all of the new applications that are being used during remote and hybrid learning that we assume will continue to be used in the future. In central office, the request to increase funding in the book line is in this budget request in order to fund the elementary science curriculum, which we hope to cover all K-5 science curriculum that's aligned to the new science standards. This year, it's become very evident that we need an educational technology specialist to support teachers and staff across the district with all of the new technology and systems that have been brought on this year to assist in instruction in remote and hybrid learning. Facilities and Grounds is also looking to increase funding for supplies for Nantucket High School and their central system plant maintenance for HVAC and for contractors. So next slide, I'm going to turn this back over to Martin, who will share the next two.
The community school revenue breakdown slide is a slide that you saw as part of the community school presentation. This is a representation of the three different revenue streams in the community school. As you can see, it's not that gifts and donations were at zero in 2002. I just couldn't find the reliable data. Searching through, I started in 2015, searching through all the documents. But this represents, this gives a great idea of how the community school sustains its operations. And as you can see, the actuals in FY20, as was already reported as part of the gift and donation presentation that we always do at the end of the year, has been at a record of 126, 170. A lot of these funds were the regular amount of money that we get from organizations such as Remain Nantucket, Community Foundation for Nantucket, and other local organizations that have been extremely generous in supporting the programs for the community school. The rest of it, there was a substantial amount that had to do with COVID-19 pandemic as well, that has been utilized within the budget of the community school. As you will see next week, I've already stated in the first quarter presentation, this has been a very challenging year. We are extremely hopeful. When we were discussing the upcoming budget, for the first time, we were a little bit unsure as to whether any of those targets that we've put in there can be achieved, because we don't know the environment the community school will be operating in next year. We're hopeful that with the vaccine, everything returns to normal as soon as possible, and then the community school can resume its normal operations. The trends were great. You've heard me present over the past 5 years, community school as an organization, thanks to its superb team that they have in place, have done great in the past 3 years, and they were on the uptick when the pandemic hit. So, but again, this is just a slide to show how it breaks down. The appropriation growth that you see between 2016 to 17, I believe actually before that, between 2005 and 6, that jump at 402, this was when medical insurance costs were brought back to the community school budget. We've reported in the past they're over $200,000. They represent a substantial cost of operation for the community school, and so that was the reason for this big jump. And then obviously in the recession it went down, and then the appropriation has steadily climbed up to be at today's level at $550,000. Next slide, please. This isn't Thank you. Thanks, Jen. The special education residential tuitions. This is a slide that was one of Mike's favorite ones to represent when he started. As you can see, it starts with the year that he started working for the school system, and that was the budget differential was something that school administration immediately focused on under him at the time, because at the end of the year, as you know, when we have some end of year funding available, we usually prepare for the upcoming year or address needs that are essential for the district, but that couldn't be covered within the budget. And it ended up happening in those 2 years that at the end of the year, money had to be used at the end of the year to bridge the gap between the expenses in the tuitions and what was budgeted in this line item. So updates were made. Throughout the years, circuit breaker has grown from 193 to 68 in 2010 to a 365.70 this year, and next year, in the past year and in the current year to 331.442. So this is a substantial help, and it has to do with a lot of filing that's done by the SPED director and a lot of paperwork. But thanks to that, we've improved that number as well. And the appropriation, as you can see, for the upcoming year grows by $100,000 from 550, where we stayed for 3 years, to 650 for next year. And I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Hallett.
Beth, you're still muted. I don't know if you're.
Yes, I was talking. I'm sorry. I think that is not the slide we want. Is there another? Could you go to the next one? That might be an empty slide by accident. Up there. Okay. So what will we accomplish with this budget? We want to address the learning and social emotional needs of our students, and we really want to do that. And we feel that knowing that there is going to be a significant change in what we were expecting, we know that we'll need to have some targeted intervention available to them. So that's an important part, and we have that built into our budget at NES and NIS. We know we want to increase our staffing at NIS and have an assistant also at NES for our NHS for our special education population. That's going to be important because, again, as we have seen in the graphs before, our special education population is growing. And so it's going to be important to support the special education population and the teachers for that area. We want to provide stronger instructional support for our English learners in general education classes at the middle and high school. We want to offer additional classroom support at kindergarten. And there will definitely be more educational technology options with this budget, and with the opportunity to have more support and stronger support across the district at all schools with the addition of an educational technology coach or an educational technology specialist. We will also be able to purchase a complete science curriculum, which is aligned to those new elementary science curriculum standards. So we are looking forward to being able to dig into these pieces of the budget for next year and to really work with our students and work with their needs and make sure that we are doing everything we can to support them, to provide equity and access in our curriculum, in our instruction, and in everything that we do with them. So I'm going to turn it back over to Martin, who will share our capital project requests.
Thank you. The capital project requests for fiscal year 2022, we have 4 of them. The first one is NPS campus-wide improvement plan, Backus lane, tennis, and baseball. This has been discussed in the past. This is a a project that's by our estimate, the request is for $1.276 million to construct the varsity baseball complex and to build 5 tennis courts for the high school tennis team on the Backus Lane property. As you can see from the drawing, it includes parking spaces also added, and it's going to be a great start to hopefully in the future the whole athletic complex being built in the next 5 to 10 years, obviously funds permitting. And next slide, please. The next slide, please, Jen. The next project is the NPS pool parking lot reconfiguration, and this capital request is for $157,901. This project was the request of the town. This is part of the whole rotary that's proposed to be created there, and this configuration allows for better access and alleviating traffic, I believe, in that area as well. So again, this is at the request of the town, so we're putting that in front of the capital program committee as well. Next slide, please. The next project that we have is NPS Building improvements. This is a yearly request. As you know, as part of last year's cuts, we had that on the table last year, and this was pushed back. So this is a $300,000 request that we use to maintain any and all school property. As you can see from the pictures, there is some asphalt plate aprons or tiles that need to be replaced, some shingling, as well as some work in individual classrooms. This is an ongoing funding for us, and it allows us to maintain the buildings outside of the regular repair and maintenance that we have in our budgets. And the last one, next slide, please, is the NPS grounds Bobcat replacement. And the estimated cost for this is a little over $64,000. So we're requesting $65,000 to replace a Bobcat that we consistently use. We've had it in service since 2000, and it's a 2004 model, and was purchased used more than 10 years ago. So it's been heavily used, and it's just at a point where buying parts and trying to maintain that equipment is not feasible. So it's better for us to do that, and that's our last capital request for the upcoming year. And I can open it up to any public comments or questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Martin, and thank you, Beth. Before we go for questions or comments, for the purpose of our minutes, I would like to recognize Mrs. Butler. And I will ask you, Zona, please, to confirm that you can hear me, and I will ask for your vote of approval on the agenda. So can you hear me?
I can hear you, Madam President.
Thank you. I'm president now. Okay. And would you please vote for the approval of the agenda?
Approval. Zona Butler, approved.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Any questions? I know this is going straight into public comment. And so I'm looking to Jen Erickson to see if Jen can give me an idea, if she can see if anyone is on and has a comment. And again, just to remind everybody, it does have to pertain to the budget for this particular public hearing. And I can't see you, Jen, on my screen. Perhaps you could just let me know in the chat, perhaps, if you see anybody with a hand raised. And at this point, while Jen is looking for public comment, I'll put it out for any public comment for those of you who are present in this meeting. And if you would just raise your hand if you have a public comment. Steve? Sorry, I'm not laughing.
Yeah, they're not really comments, they're clarifications. And I made some notes and I was going to email them to Beth. Would you rather I do that now while Jen's doing what she's doing?
I think if we, just so that we don't get into a discussion, but if you want to share the comments that Beth may or may not respond tonight, but I think it would be.
Okay.
Better.
They were just clarifications. For example, has the anticipated or hoped for increased ESSER grant already been included in our budget, or would that be something we would use if and when it arrives? Secondly, does the $80,000 figure for an educational technologist include the town's insurance share? And what's the source? And I would imagine that this can be answered easily enough. What's the source of the special education residential appropriation? Is that from our budget, or does the town give us that?
I'll ask Martin to answer that one, please.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you.
The circuit breaker is based on a percentage of reimbursement, and I can refer actually to Deb Gately, who can describe in better terms what the application process for that is. Every year we submit information. It's not necessarily an application, but we submit information. It's sort of a report, and on the basis of that we get reimbursements. It has to do with out of district tuitions, and the percentages have varied in the past 3 years between 63 and 72, 73%. So if that answers your question,
Martin, I
Steve,
think
it
I may
doesn't come
have
from.
made myself misunderstood. I'm not talking, the circuit breaker was 300 something thousand, but the next line was an appropriation of, I think, 650,000. Is that from the town, or where does that come from?
This is actually part of our budget. I'm sorry, Steve. I apologize.
No, that's okay. No apology necessary.
This is part of our budget. It's a line item. We have a line item in our budget for tuition, so it's not an appropriation. It's part of our 32 million and change budget. So,
gotcha. Thanks.
Beth, do you want to just touch upon those clarifications?
Yes, I may need Mr. Sordovic to remind me, but I will start with the $80,000 educational technologist. That is a projected salary. So the health insurance and other benefits is covered through the town. That's not included in the 80,000.
Yep, that was that question. Definitely.
Yeah, and then you had another one.
I thought you said you hoped for or had been led to believe that
The
there
ESSER.
might be another 400,000 ESSER COVID grant coming.
Yes. So that has not been included in this budget presentation, very simply because we don't have the specific number yet. We've been told by Bill Bell, who is the finance guru at the Department of Education, that about 3.7 to 3.8 times more than we received in the ESSER 1 grant for this year will be available to us. But until those numbers come through to us, I didn't feel comfortable putting anything
No,
yet.
understood. That's why I was asking for the clarification. That'll be funding to be spent if received.
Yes, spent if received. What we do understand is that there's a longer longevity. So we see that we'll be able to use it in 2 years. So it's usable until September of 2023. So and it doesn't limit us as much as the current ESSER CARES Act grant did with what we can use it for. So that's very helpful. And we're looking forward to seeing what our appropriation is.
Great. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, everyone. We do not have anybody who has identified for public comment. So this will conclude our public hearing for our budget of 2022. And I would ask, please, for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And Zona, may I have your vote?
Aye, Zona Butler.
Thank you, Steve Sotovic.
Aye.
Thank you, Tim Lepre.
Aye.
Thank you, Pauline Proch. Aye. Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the little quirky beginning, but we got there in the end. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Nice to see you all.
Thank you. Take care.
All done. And it's just, you have to have a public hearing of the budget. And this is a public hearing. Are you guys coming in here or can I play one of my archery games?
No, we're too much of something here. If you want to do that, you don't get a chance to do it very often. Except try to stand up. Stand up. Put your back
I'm
brace on.
gimping.
I know. Put your back brace on. You want to do that?
I think it's in the office.
It should be right there. I think it might be. Is it right there in the one of the bins?
No, that's the little one.
Well, use the little one. Use something. Okay.
So I gotta figure out this. Rotten dogs. Are you the RDs? Yes. I believe you were the RDs. Huh? I'm talking to the dogs. Yeah. No. I ate the piece you gave me. What good hounds? It is 7 o'clock. Let me watch a half an hour of this and then we can assemble. Or disassemble or whatever.
Those who qualify, the Freestyle Libre 2 system is now covered by Medicare. As per your prescription, you can do it without finger sticks. Learn more at freestylelibre2.us.